guys, what's up? We will take about Linux right from scratch. I will give an introduction from Linux. Let's proceed. What is Linux? Linux is an operating system just like Windows and Mac OS X. Linux derives many things from Unix operating system. And Linux is open source and free. What does open source means? Let's have a look. It simply means that no payments are required. Direct download and install. Open source means there is a source code associated with Linux which can be used by any person in the world to create his own operating system. This operating system will be Linux OS because he or she used the Linux source code. Because Linux is open source, we have large numbers of Linux operating system out in the market. Let's have a look at the hardware requirements of Linux operating system. I will not go into specific hardware requirements, like how much RAM is required or how much space is required, because every Linux distribution has different hardware requirements. I'm gonna show you is the basic hardware requirements, and that is Linux can be run in any x86 or x64. x86 is 32-bit and x64 is 64-bit. Who uses Linux? Linux is mainly used in supercomputers, SOBUS, and Android-powered devices. Supercomputers are the fastest computers in the world. They can do large numbers of arithmetic calculation in a single seconds. 90% of the fastest of 500 supercomputers use Linux. That is the hint that the Linux is the fastest operating system. SOBUS is like a storage. Store all website data, SQL data, or SQL databases, Oracle databases, and etc. According to a survey, approximately 60% of SOBUS use Linux, and only like 40% use Windows. So Linux is dominating in a SOBUS radio. The Android-powered devices also made use of Linux. Android-powered devices, or we could say Android operating system, is the most famous mobile operating system and the most widespread mobile operating system in this era. What is usage share of Linux? If we have a look of the Wikimedia statistics, in June 2012, it says that Linux is being used only for 1.53%, and Android is being used by 4.3%. We all know that Android is leading in mobile market space, but Linux in the desktop, or shall we say in a personal computer market, is lagging. And that is the reason because 5 years ago, Linux was like you had to coordinate Linux to do every specific task. Today, Linux has been a word-to-graphic user interface. So, expect that Linux market share increases. Now, the second reason why Linux is lagging, it's because more of the applications are open source. And I'm not saying that open source applications are bad. I use open source because it is free. And because the problem is open source, software is that sometimes they lack many things. That is the usage share of Linux. So, keeping a market share aside, so let's talk about file system of Linux. It makes use of extended journaling file system ext4. It is the basic used today. ext3 supports storage volumes up to 2 to 60 bytes. It can be too large, and faster file scanning. Now, what is the famous Linux GUI, or graphical user interfaces? And talking more about famous, there are many graphic user interfaces in Linux. First is the GNOME Shell and Ubuntu Unity, KDE Plasma Desktop, XCE, and LXDE. Now GNOME can be furthermore graphic user interface using GNOME Shell and Ubuntu Unity. Let's have a look at the famous user interfaces. Let's have the GNOME at the left side, and we have GNOME in the right side. So it's a GNOME graphic user interface. For KDE Plasma Desktop, it will look like this. The XFCE and the LXDE. The XFCE is on the left side, and the LXDE is on the left side. Now, let's talk about the home folder. If you use Linux, you have a Linux home folder. Home folder is the folder where all your documents, music, videos, etc. are stored in Linux. What comes with Linux OS? Every Linux distribution comes with basic required softwares like photo viewer, video player, documents editor, text editor, web browser, mail client, few games, and etc. Many Linux distributions come with programming languages installed like PHP, Java, C++. Applications. Many Linux distributions have their own application store, from where users can download applications. Applications can be installed from internet too. Executable file or every Linux distribution is different. And many applications have to be installed using terminal. Now, let's proceed to the uninstall applications. Application uninstall is done using terminal, or the application store of the executable file. Let's proceed to terminal. Terminal is like a command prompt of Windows. It is used to perform various tasks like finding IP addresses of your internet connection, installing applications, and doing SSH and etc.